चलें यूट्यूब का लिंक भी शेयर कर दें। अस्सलाम वालेकुम आर्या।
अभी मारिया का ना इंटरनेट सही नहीं चल रहा,
हम्म
तो मे बी अगर वो रिस्पॉन्ड कर दें तो शो के, नहीं तो फिर मैं स्टार्ट कर दूंगा।
ठीक है, कोई भी स्टार्ट कर दो, हमने तो वही करना है ना।
ठीक।
Am I audible?
यस यू आर।
वो तुम्हारी वो था लेक्चर था पॉडकास्ट होगा ग्रुप यार।
प्लीज सब लोग अपने ना माइक ऑफ कर लें।
क्या कहे भैया, क्या कहे भैया? भैया ने कुछ कहा, वैसे उसे मैंने कहा है कि इस तरह बताया था, किस तरह से बताएगी, उसके आज बात करेगी ना, आपको समझाएगी तो यार ना करें। फिर वो डिले होता है, यानी 19 को था ना पहले। हाँ 20 को संडे आ जाता है, 21 को अगर उनका होता है फिर 22 को करता ट्यूसडे प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत लंबी नहीं हो जाएगी। कब से हमारा सेशन स्टार्ट होगा?
Kindly everyone turn off your mic, please.
शुरू हुआ हमारा सेशन?
हमारा कब शुरू हुआ था? अप्रैल के स्टार्ट में, नहीं सॉरी मार्च के स्टार्ट में।
स्टार्ट में क्या 13 तो भी हो गई है, इसमें छुट्टियां देखी थी।
Okay.
बहुत की छुट्टी।
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 65-day match webinar with incredible Dr. Sheena Shamoon. First of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Shamoon, for joining us again today. About Dr. Shamoon, from the moment she completed her health job, Dr. Sheena Shamoon embarked on an era of extraordinary achievement that would inspire thousands of IMGs. Within just 360 days, she systematically conquered every challenge. First, demolishing a USMLE steps, plus OT, and making into a highly competitive internal medicine program at University at Dallas Jacobs School of Medicine. But her medical licensing victories were just beginning. Simultaneously, she authored an astonishing 30-plus research publications and presented groundbreaking work at the medicine's most elite conferences, including AHA, ASCO, CHEST, and ASH. Dr. Shamoon, we are so grateful to have you with us again today. Your insight from yesterday's session were incredibly powerful, and we have already so many participants say how motivated they feel after hearing your story. So let's welcome Dr. Shamoon. Ma'am, can start. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Good evening and thank you again for coming here today. It's an honor for me to be able to do this for you guys. And I can see that some of you guys were here yesterday as well, and you're here again today. So that makes me really happy. So thank you very much for being here. Should I start, or do you guys want me to wait for a few minutes? Okay, that sounds great. I'm just gonna start. Okay, just give me a minute. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, so welcome to our day 2. And yesterday we talked about a number of things according to my 2 cents about the USMLE journey. And yesterday we discussed about the preparation strategies for the USMLE steps and the OET exam. Then we talked a little bit about how to deal with the mental health challenges of the whole USMLE journey. Then we talked about starting and growing as a researcher and the importance of research in the whole match process. And after that, we talked about the virtual, different virtual job positions that you can pursue. Preparation strategies for the USMLE steps and the OET exam, the Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the much anticipated and the topic that everybody wants to talk about, which is the US clinical experience. So I think that most of you will have a lot of questions about US clinical experience, how to get it, where to do it, what to do during your US clinical experience, and all of those things. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And I'd appreciate if you guys just leave your questions in, our chat box, or if you're following us on YouTube, then just leave your questions in the comments, and I'll get to them at the end of the sessions. So let's talk about the US clinical experience. So, what are the types of US clinical experience? So, going in the hierarchy of hands-on to hands-off experience, there are electives, there are externships, and then there are observerships, right? So, what are electives and what are externships and what are observerships? So, electives are the hands-on experience that you can do as a medical student. This is not something that you can do once you have graduated medical school. And what do I mean by hands-on or hands-off experience? So hands-on experience means that you get to participate in the patient care, you get to talk to the patient, you get to take their history, you even get to do their medical, the physical exam, and present the cases and all of that stuff. And that is something that you can do as a medical student during your electives. And then we come to the second thing, which is the externship. Uh, it is a hands-on experience that you can do as an observer, but you do not have as much liberty as you would as a medical student doing electives. But still, there are certain things that you can do during your externship, which involves, um, taking the history of the patient, and some places would actually allow you to do a physical exam while you're doing an externship, but some places would not. So that's about, externship is sort of in the middle of electives and observerships. And the third thing is the observerships, which is also called as shadowing. And that is something which is the most common form of US clinical experience that students from Pakistan do. Um, they're comparatively easier to find than electives, and they're most of the time they are free of cost. So that is one of the reasons why people tend to do observerships more than electives, because electives are usually paid and they're quite expensive as well. So during observerships, what you do is that you shadow a particular doctor, and you do not get to take part in, direct patient care, I would say, but you can sometimes, depending on your preceptor, they would allow you to take physical exam and medical history as well. But that's really something that depends on your, that really depends on your preceptor. So, after that, let's see that what can be the different, ways to get US clinical experience. So just give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So the next question that comes is, when should you apply for, observerships or electives? So when you're talking about observerships and electives separately, as I just said, that electives is something that you can do in your medical school, but not after you've graduated. So that really answers the question that you should apply for electives while you're still in your medical school, and preferably during your final year. The reason being that you've already studied medicine and surgery and gynae and peds, so you actually understand the clinical part of medicine. So that will actually help you compared to if you were to do electives in your fourth year. You wouldn't have done medicine and surgery and gynae and peds, so you wouldn't really understand what's going on. But as far as observerships are concerned, and one of the reasons that I get so many questions asked about, that we're emailing people and we're not getting any replies from people. So ideally, I would suggest that in terms of between step 1 and step 2, that is the ideal time for you to apply. But even more important than that is, what time of the year should you be applying? Um, I cannot I cannot insist on this enough that you should apply for observerships towards the end of the year. Preferably do it during November and December. The reason for that is that up until October, the people who are actually applying in match or who are in the current match session, they are already doing observerships. So the attendings are very much occupied with those observers already. On the other hand, if you were to apply for observerships during like February, March, or April, the problem is at that time, everybody's applying for observerships. And I have seen it during my observerships with, my attendings during February, March, and April, that their inboxes were actually flooding with emails from people. And before that, I used to think that why are not people replying on emails? But once I saw their emails, they had thousands of emails. And that's when I realized that it's not possible for them to reply to you. So my advice to apply for observerships would be that you should be applying for observerships towards like in November and December, because that is the time that most of the people are free. They do not have observers. And at the same time, their inboxes are not flooding with people looking for observerships. And the other thing is that um, it's preferable to do your observerships after your step 2. The reason is that then in the same visit, you can take your step 3 as well. But that doesn't mean that you should wait to apply for observership until you have done your step 2. Once you're done with your step 1 and you're preparing for your step 2, you should be looking for observerships. You should not be waiting to take your step 2, to apply for observerships, because then the same thing will happen, which happens with most of the students, that they send tons of emails, but they don't get any replies. So in order to avoid that, my advice would be to applying towards the end of the year. Even if you want to do observerships 6 months or 8 months after, just book your slot and, between your step 1 and step 2. Where to apply? So you might come across a number of platforms like medical clerkships and AMOs, and I think there's an FMG portal, something like that. So these are all the places where you can definitely apply. But the problem with these is that since they are a business, number one, they'll find you observerships which will be charging. And the other thing would be that these particular organizations would be charging you for their services as well. So in addition to paying for an observerships, you'll also be paying for the service that you're getting from them. And that's in dollars, like hundreds of dollars, or even $1,000 and $1,500. So I mean, if you're somebody who can afford to do that, definitely go for it. But if you're somebody who has financial constraints and don't want to do paid observerships and don't want to pay somebody to find observerships for you, the thing that you have to do is that you reach out to hospitals directly. And what I mean by that, reaching out to hospitals directly means that you find a preceptor, you ask them if they would let you do an observership with them, and you start doing your observership with them. But is it actually as easy as I'm making it sound? Yes and no. The advice for how do you find observerships? This is the question that I get asked a lot of the time, and my suggestion would be that um, there are two ways you should be navigating on where you should be doing observerships, right? So, the first thing is that you can do observerships in IMG friendly programs. The hospitals which have internal medicine residency programs and they take IMGs as well. Doing an observership in those places would be really, really helpful because not only that you would get a recommendation letter from them, but also because you'll be building connections over there. And once you build connections with your preceptors who are already in the program, they're very likely to help you get an interview from those programs. So that is one way to, that is one of the places where you can do an observership. The other approach, which I followed, is that you do observerships in hospitals that are renowned all over US. Which means that, I mean, for example, if you were to do an observership at Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or Johns Hopkins or Harvard, these are the institutions that have a name for themselves. Once you get a recommendation letter from these places, wherever you go, that institution is well known in all of the IMG friendly programs. So that gives you an edge that even though these are the hospitals that themselves are not IMG friendly and probably would not offer you an interview even if you did apply. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible, but it's unlikely to get an interview from these places. But once you get a recommendation letter from these places and it goes to any hospital in your application, they would know that you've got an observership letter or you've got a recommendation letter from a very good institution. So that is the other approach that you can definitely follow. So now the question arises that how do you find observerships? So the one way, which is the classical way, which you might hear from everyone, is that cold emailing. You send thousands of emails and hope that somebody replies. While this is a process that worked for a lot of my friends as well, and a lot of other people I know, but this is something that did not work for me. I started sending out emails for observerships, like just cold emailing people, and I didn't get a single reply from them. So while it might work for some of you, it was not something that worked for me. So, I mean, I don't suggest that this is the best way to do this. So what is the best way to do this? First of all, I think the process is that you shortlist the hospitals that you actually want to go to, whether it's the IMG friendly places where you want to, pursue your residency, or whether it's the bigger names where you just want to go and, get a good US clinical experience and a good recommendation letter. And once you have finalized your hospital, like you make a list of 5 or 10 hospitals that these are the hospitals that I want to do an observership in. So then you start reaching out to the residents and the fellows over there. you can start reaching out to the faculty, which is again a means of cold emailing. But the better would be that you reach out to the residents and fellows over there. And once you build a relationship with them over months, then you can ask them that please ask your attendings to give me an observership. So the caveat to this situation is that if you are reaching a resident today and tomorrow you're asking them that please help me get an observership in your program, it's very unlikely that they'll do that because they don't know you, they have no rapport with you, they have no connection with you, so they're probably not going to help you do that. So how I did it was, as I told you, that I started looking for observerships in November. That was around the time when I hadn't even taken my step one. So before that, while I was in my house job, I started reaching out to people in different places, all of these places where I've rotated. I started reaching out to people and just for the sake of, asking them that, oh, I'm planning to do USMLE and I would love your insight. And when you ask somebody that open-ended question, a lot of the time you do get replies from people because they'll tell you, oh, you should do this, you should prepare this way, you should do that, you should do that. And over time, over a course of months, like 6 to 8 or 9 months or a year, you tend to build a relationship with those people. As I said yesterday, that you greet them on Eids, you greet them on New Year's. If they're showing in your Facebook and it's their birthday, you send them a happy birthday message. And that's how you build a connection with them. And once you have actually built that connection with them, after 6 to 8 months, it's very likely that if you ask them that, oh, bhai or baji, I'm not able to get an observership from anywhere. Can you please talk to your attendings and help me get an observership? There's a very good chance that if you've maintained a good relationship with them, they're likely to help you. And if I'm being honest, I got all 5 of my observerships through these connections. And when I say connections, I shared this yesterday as well, that I have no relatives in US. None of my relatives or very close friends are doctors in US. So it's not like I had a prepared platter in front of me and I just picked people and I just told them that, oh, get me an observership, and they did. It was not at all like that. I decided that I would do USMLE while I was in final year. And the first thing that I did was start making connections and start networking with people. And I started preparing for my USMLE after almost 3 years of deciding that I want to do USMLE. And in those 3 years, I built very strong connections that wherever I asked somebody to get me an observership, they did. So this is how the things worked out for me. And this would be the best advice that I can give you for finding an observership. So that is one way of getting, and in my opinion, that is the best way of getting a US clinical experience opportunity. So let's come down to how to maximize your benefits, So what is the purpose of doing a US clinical experience? Uh, when you reach out to people and you ask them that, why are we even doing a US clinical experience? They would tell you, you want to get a recommendation letter. While that is true, that is not the only thing that you want to do a US clinical experience for. You're spending thousands of dollars. You're spending time away from your family. You're doing so much activity that you're leaving your home, and you're suffering in the cold and warmer weathers, and living with different people, sharing the apartments, eating crappy food. So all of those things, just for one recommendation letter, doesn't seem worth it to me. So what actually is the US clinical experience? The sole purpose and the most important thing of doing the US clinical experience is that you have to understand the US healthcare system. Our system is very, very different from the US healthcare system. If I'm being honest, it's about 180-degree different from the system in Pakistan. I'm not sure about how the system is in India or Bangladesh because we have a lot of people from there as well. But if I'm comparing the system of US with Pakistan, it's almost 180-degree different. At the same time, the people, the professionalism, the work ethics, and the psychology of the people is also very different from ours. So the most important thing why you're doing all of this is to learn about the US healthcare system system, which includes their procedures, which include how, the whole process or the whole system works, at the same time as learning the psychology of the people who are there. Because this is something which is actually going to help you during your interview season, when you're, applying for a match, and even once you get your residency. So that is the sole purpose of getting a US clinical experience. And once you may, as far as the recommendation letters are concerned, if you're doing observerships with people, with doctors from Pakistan or India, or IMGs, if I'm being broader, they understand that you're doing observerships for the sake of getting a recommendation letter. It's kind of stated. But if you're doing it with somebody who is an American doctor, so in those cases, you have to ask them for a recommendation letter. But that is also important to understand that when should you be asking them for a recommendation letter? If you email them that, can I do an observership with you because I need a recommendation letter, it's very likely that an American doctor wouldn't even reply to you. Because then they feel that you're only doing this just for the sake of getting a recommendation letter. And those people, unlike our people, are very, very stingy about recommendation letters. They actually write recommendations for people that they want to recommend. So that is one aspect of it. So,
Yeah. क्या सारे जा रहे हैं
please switch off your microphone. Thank you. Okay, so that is one of the major, goals of US clinical experience. The second thing is that you want to build relationships with people. And when I mean by relationships and connections with people, I mean that your supervisors, the residents in the programs, the fellows in the program, because I'm not sure if people tell this obviously, but connections are one of the very important things in anywhere in the world, not just in the US healthcare system, but wherever you'll go. If you have a good recommendation, if you have a good connection, you're likely to, you're likely to get an interview. The reason is it's not a bad thing, because if somebody thinks that you're not capable, they're not going to recommend you. So if somebody is recommending you, that means that you are capable. So don't let anybody make it seem like having connections or building relationships is a bad thing. It's not. Because even if you do have connections, but you're not an eligible candidate, nobody's going to recommend you, because at the end of the day, if you do not perform, we don't have this, this system of getting feedback here in Pakistan, but in the US, if you're not working, if you're not working up to the mark, your program's going to reach out to the person who vouched for you. So nobody recommends people who are not worth recommending. So it's your turn to make your connections, to make a good impact, and then ask that person to put in a good word for you in whatever program you're applying to. Show ethics that they've never seen before. This is one of the things that I cannot insist enough. The reason is that every supervisor who is allowing you to do an observership with them, they get tons of observers every year. If they get 2 or 4 observers every month, or even 2 observers every month, they have 24 people in 1 year. They have 24 people they're going to write recommendation letters for. And it's very easy to forget you if you do not leave a memorable, impression. So how do you stand out from those 24 or 50 people who are also rotating with your supervisor? I mean, if there are so many people rotating with your supervisor and you ask them for a recommendation letter, do you think that they're going to spend 24 days and trying to remember every little detail about you to make your letter personalized? No, they won't. So what do? You do something like, you do something different, which makes you memorable for them. That even if they're writing the same recommendation letter for the other 23 people, they're writing a different recommendation letter for you. And this is something that I felt in during my match season, because The places where I rotated, they had other observers as well. But my supervisors, when I asked them to write recommendation letters for me, they wrote my recommendation letters and they texted me back that we've written a very personalized letter for you. How do you make yourself memorable? You have to do something which makes you memorable. What are those things? For me, let me just share an example that I used to in all of the US clinical experiences that I've done in the US, all the 6 months, all the 5 places, um, I used to bring something for the nursing staff. I really like Oreos. So after my 1 week in the hospital and just getting to know, the doctor and the nurses and all of that, I would just bring a big box of Oreos and I would just leave it on the nurse's station with a little note that enjoy your day or something and help yourself and just write my name under it. So what happens with that is, and after that, in one of my experiences, actually, I saw that one of the nurses was actually talking to my supervisor about me that, oh, you've got a very good student. She brought us cookies today. So these are the kind of things that make you memorable in front of your attendings who are also dealing with so many other students at the same time. This is just one example. You can do so many other things. Just be creative and do something. It doesn't have to be something very big. It can just be as small as getting a box of cookies for the nursing staff. But this is something that's going to leave a very good impression. And the reason is because people don't do that. And once you go to the US, you're going to see that the people are super friendly and they're super caring about each other. So these are the kind of things that they normally do. And when you do it, they see you as one of them. They see that you're the kind of person who would fit in their working environment. Compared to if you were a person who wouldn't even say good morning to the person who's sitting on the door and just go to your preceptor and just start following them. So that is how I would say that you have to make yourself memorable. And other than those, the common ethics, make yourself presentable. Don't go in your slippers and don't go in your pajamas. Just wear, good clothes. Your overalls should be pressed. You should be dressed very nicely, that you look like you're a professional person. And again, you should be punctual. Just take initiative, but you don't have to be, you don't have to try to be over smart with people. You just have to be the right amount of smart, which is just be punctual, ask questions where they're warranted, participate in things, take initiatives, and just like that. These are the things that would help you be memorable in your preceptors and in the eyes of your preceptors, and maybe even in the program if you're rotating in an IMG friendly program. The other thing is create future opportunities. So what I mean by that is, yesterday I shared that I worked as a medical assistant. I worked as a medical scribe. I worked as a virtual research assistant. Well, the job of the medical assistant was something that I got, outside my US clinical experience, but the job of the virtual research assistant and the scribe job, those were the jobs that I got during my clinical experience, because I shared with my attendings that I have financial constraints and I'm looking to support my journey. And I would really appreciate, any kinds of jobs that I can. So do you think you can guide me in the process? Guys, please just switch off your microphone. So, I mean, I did talk to my preceptor that get me a job. I just asked them that, can you guide me where I can get these jobs? And when you take that initiative and you show that interest, that you're willing to break your boundaries and you're willing to break your barriers and you want to do this, and you're actually seeking legitimate guidance and legitimate advice from your supervisors, they tend to really help you. So my supervisors, they connected me with people who had private practices there, and that's how I got the medical scribe job. And similarly, I talked to my supervisor that I'm really interested in research, and I've done tons of research as well. So I want to work on research. and they had a grant, but not enough to let me work with them in person. But I said that I would work from home. I would do the work that I can do from home. Just give me the opportunity. And they did. And that's how I ended up working as the research assistant for them. So I think that one of the most important things in your whole USMLE journey is your US clinical experience. So if I'm being frank, and I have to say this in a layman term, I just want to say that when you go for your US clinical experience, make sure that, आप अपने पैसे पूरे करें, because you're spending a lot of money on your US clinical experience, and you're not doing it just to get a recommendation letter. You're doing it to learn about people. You're doing it to learn about the US healthcare system. You're doing it to actually get into residency. So just make sure that the kind of money that you're spending on your US clinical experience actually pays off. So all of these are the things that you should be doing during your US clinical experience. Otherwise, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to the person who's paying for your expenses that you just go and get a recommendation letter. That's not enough. The last thing I would say about the US clinical experience is that what should you do after your observerships? So I've seen a lot of people, even some of my friends, that once they have done their observerships and they have asked their supervisor that, would you please write me a recommendation letter? And they agree, they just vanish from the scene. And the next time they talk to them is after the 6 months when they're actually applying for a match and need those recommendation letters. While they would write you a recommendation letter, and I mean, that's good enough, but what else can you do after you complete your observerships? What I did was that I stayed in touch with my preceptors throughout. I mean, the first observerships that I did in February, I started my next observership, and I made sure that my previous preceptor knew that I'm starting my next observership in this hospital. And similarly, I then, as soon as it goes, that then one preceptor, then second, then third, and fourth, all of those started piling up, and I made sure that I kept them posted about my journey. I made sure that they knew that now I'm doing observership here. Now I'm back to Pakistan. Now I'm studying for step 2. Now I've taken my step 2. This is my step 2 score. Now I'm back to US. Now I'm taking step 3. Now I'm applying for match. The reason, again, is that you build a connection with them over time. Now, the question you asked me is, what is the purpose of building this connection once you've gotten your recommendation letter from them? What I did was that I rotated in 5 different states in the US. I did 5 different observerships, and they were in 5 different states. Sorry, 4 different states. 4 different states. What I did was that when I applied for match, I made sure that my supervisor emailed the program in that state and told them that I was a good candidate and that they should review my application. For example, I did an observership in Maryland, and there are so many IMG-friendly programs in Baltimore. So what I did was that I asked my supervisor at Johns Hopkins that I've applied to these 5 or 6 or 7 programs in Baltimore or in Maryland, and I would really love it if you could send in an email for them. So, and he did. He asked me that, can you just find me the emails of the program directors for these programs? And I found those emails for him. I just gave him those emails. And while I applied for match, he emailed all those programs on my behalf that I have done an observership with him, and that they should review my application. Even though his recommendation letter was attached with my application, but who would know that I have a recommendation letter from Hopkins until they open my application? So what I did was I asked my supervisor that please send in an email, and he did. And that's my application got reviewed, and I got interviews from those places. I did the similar things for Texas. I did the similar thing for Philadelphia as well. So, and these are the places where I got most of my interviews from. And that's because once you get a person from Johns Hopkins or a person from Mayo Clinic or a person from anywhere that this is a person who's rotated with me and they're a good student and you should review their application. There's a very good chance that they would read their email I mean, it's one supervisor to another supervisor, or one faculty or one assistant professor to another assistant professor. And that holds a lot of importance. That's how your application can get reviewed. So this is something that I would really, really suggest, that don't ghost your supervisors after your observership is completed. Stay in touch with them and make sure that you get the money for, all of the money that you've spent on your US clinical experience, that you do justice with the money that you've spent on your US clinical experience. So that is all about the US clinical experience, and I'm sure that you guys would have a lot of questions. So just start leaving them in the chat box, and we'll come back to your questions at the end of the session. And I think that I've covered most of the things about the US clinical experience. If you're wondering about the cost and all of these, we're going to talk about it in the future right now. So the next thing that comes is a match-winning ERAS application. So what is ERAS if you don't already know? ERAS is the Electronic Residency Application Services. It is actually the platform where you submit your application for the match. So it's not like you don't have to send your application separately to hundreds of programs that you're applying to. There is this one platform called the ERAS, and you make your application there, and you just give access to all the programs that you're applying to, and they can just review your application over there. So what is a match-winning ERAS application? Let's see. Before we dive into, what a match-winning ERAS application is, what are the things that you should do before match season? So the deadline for ERAS is somewhere around September. Last year it was 25th September. So more or less, it's going to be the same this year again. So what are the things that you should do before match? There are a lot of documents that you need from your medical school. There are a lot of documents that you need from, your dean of medicine and all of those people. So these are the documents that you should prepare beforehand, because some of these documents are the things that your medical school has to upload themselves. For example, your medical student performance evaluation, which is the MSPE, or the IMSEL, which is the Internal Medicine Structured Evaluation, letter. Yeah. So these are the things that your university or your medical school is supposed to make, and they are the ones who are supposed to upload those. So if you have a lot of people applying from your medical school, there can be a delay in those documents. So the sooner you can do it, the better. And I think the ERAS opens around June, so you have a good 3 months, 3 or 4 months to complete your application. So the first thing I would say you do is that you get your documents completed. You get your MSP and your IMSEL from your medical school, and you ask them to upload. You would also need your transcripts from your medical school, and probably your diploma as well. So just get those things, just get them out of the way, just get them as soon as possible. Then come your LORs, which are your recommendation letters. These are the things that your supervisors have to upload, and considering that your supervisors are usually very busy people, so it's not fair to tell them 10 days before your application that, oh, upload my letter, please. While the nice ones would actually do it even in those 10 days, but it's not fair to them that you're not even giving them the time. So the sooner you ask them, the better it is. So, I mean, just ask them in July or August, if you've already done an observership with them, that can you please upload my recommendation letter? And the sooner you get done with these things, the better it is. Update your connections that you're applying for match. Again, I think that today's the conversation is mostly about building connections, and the reason is that they're very, very important in match. So what I mean by updating your connections that you're applying for match, you should tell your the people that you know in different residency, whether they are residents, whether they're fellows, or they're attendings, or whoever your connections are, you should tell them in advance that you're applying for match. And you should ask them that, can you please recommend me in your program? The reason for doing this earlier is there are two reasons for that. The first one is that some people would reach out to them before you do. I mean, it's not possible that one person just knows you you are the only person that they're going to vouch for. So they did know tons of people, and a lot of people would ask them before you that, can you please recommend me? And there's a limit to how many people you can recommend. I mean, if I had 10 friends, or if I had 10 people asking me that, can you please recommend me in your program? I definitely cannot recommend 10 people in my program. So who would I recommend? Number one, if I have somebody who I know very closely, or I have a very close friend and I know that they're capable, that is the first person that I would recommend. But if I don't have very close friends and everybody stands on the same level, I would definitely recommend the person who has asked me first. So that's why it's very important that don't reach out to your connections in September. Once you have submitted your application, reach out to them a month or two in advance, so that you are the first person asking them, requesting them to recommend you in their program. The other reason for this is that not all residency programs, but certain residency programs, they have this policy that they allow their residents to recommend one person. And that is the one person that whose CV or whose application they're definitely going to review. So, and most of these places would ask for recommendations before ERAS closes, like a month before, or 15 days or 20 days before. So if you're reaching out to somebody in a program who asks their residents for recommendation, once your ERAS has closed, there's a very good chance they've already recommended somebody. So the better it is, the sooner you reach out to people to recommend you in their program, the better it would be. So these are the two things that I would say that before your match season, you should do it. And then definitely there's step 3. If you can do it before your ERAS closes, you have your result in hand, that's better. But if not, it's not the end of the world. I did not have my step 3 when I applied for match. Navigating match. So once you have filled out your ERAS application and you've submitted your ERAS application, the term comes to how do you apply to programs. So in navigating match, there are two things. The first thing is that how do you make your ERAS application stand out? And the other thing is the programs that you're applying to. So when talking about the ERAS application, it has a very well-defined patterns that you have to write your demographics, you have to write your certifications, you have to write 10 experiences, and then, your hobbies and a few other questions. So the important thing to consider here is that they give you 10 options to write meaningful experiences. You might have more than 10 meaningful experiences, but you don't have the space to write all of them. So when you're writing those 10 experiences, you have to be very, very careful about what you're writing. And there can be a lot of different opinions about what you should write, what you shouldn't write. But for me, I think that you should write very balanced experiences. They should not all be educational. They should not all be related to research. They should not all be related to leaderships. They should not all be related to volunteer work. Since you're getting 10 experiences, you can just balance it to 2, 2, 2, 2, or 3, 3, 3, and 1. Like write 3 observerships, write 3 volunteer experiences, write 2 leadership experiences, then write 2 research experiences, so that when somebody's looking at your application, they know that they're dealing with a well-rounded person, compared to, because that is the only your application is the only thing that they have about you. They've never met you in your life. They don't know anything about you. Whatever you are on the paper is the kind of person that they know you to be. So it's very important that you present yourself as a very balanced individual. How do you do that? Is that you write very balanced experiences. You cover all of the things in those 10 experiences, all of the aspects of your personality, all of the things that are important to you, all of the things that you're passionate about, they should be included in your 10 experiences. So that is one thing which is very important about your ERAS application. The other thing comes down to applying to the programs. There are about more than 600 programs for internal medicine. And I mean, it's a very costly procedure because you have to pay a separate amount of money for every program that you're applying to. So nobody applies to all 600 of them. So what the usual number of program people apply to, I mean, it ranges from 100 to 200. I applied to 130 programs. So it can be less than that. It can be more than that, depending on whatever your preference is. There's no well-defined number that this is the number of programs that you should be applying to. What the use of signals is very important, and it's the smart use of signal is something which can change the whole game of your match. Signals are, in your ERAS application now, you're granted in internal medicine, you're granted 15 signals. It's different for different specialties. They're lesser in some other specialties, maybe more in others, I'm not aware. But in medicine, you get 15 signals, and out of those 15 signals, you have 3 gold signals and you have 12 silver signals. So it's very, very important that you smartly signal the programs. Your gold signals are one of your biggest strengths in the match, because most of the programs will give you, there's a very good chance that if you send a gold signal to them, they'll definitely recommend you, review your application. And if your application is good, you might even get an interview from them. And it's very important to know that how do you decide which programs to send gold signal to? The number one thing is that it should be a program where your credentials match. Like, I would not send a gold signal to Mayo Clinic. Even if I want to go to Mayo Clinic, I would not send a gold signal because I know that they're not IMG friendly. I know that they do not want to sponsor me a visa. I know that there's a very slim chance that I'll get an interview from them. So I would never signal Mayo Clinic. But the other important thing is that once your credentials match with a particular program, you have to see that, is this the kind of place that you actually want to go to? If yes, then definitely send a gold signal to that place. So the best strategy to send gold signal is the program where your credentials match, the program where you want to go, and the program where you have a good connection as well. So that you're reinforcing all of your things on that one program, that you get an interview from them and hopefully even get matched in that program. I matched in my gold signal program, and I got interviews from all 3 of my gold signal programs. So it's very important to send gold signals to the programs where you actually want to go, and where your credentials match, and where you know people and you can actually see yourself working in that program. And again, approach your context in advance. That's something that I've even said before, that don't reach out to people on 11th hour. You have to build your connections over time so that you have that reputation with people. People actually get to know you, and that's when they're likely to help you. Polishing. So get your application reviewed and avoid red flags. So you have to, it's very good to get your application reviewed by somebody who knows what they're doing. Yesterday, we talked in detail about mentorship, and I kept saying the same thing again and again, that you should choose a mentor who knows what they're doing. And that is somebody who has been in the US system for a couple of years at least, so that they have seen the kind of people who match, they have seen the number of applications, they've seen a lot of people interviewing, and that's when they're likely to give you good advice. If you come to me and ask me to be your mentor and I even say yes, I don't think that I would be the best person for doing that. The reason is that if I hadn't matched, I would be one of you. And just because I got matched doesn't make me mentor material. So that is something that is very important to consider when you're choosing a mentor, that they should be somebody who knows what they're doing and who have the experience of all of those things, so that they can give you the best possible advice, because you want to get the best possible advice, because you're spending a lot of energy, a lot of money, and a lot of time on this, on the whole journey. You deserve to get the best mentorship there is. And then not just your application, you have to get your personal statement reviewed as well. You should be discussing with your mentors that what kind of programs should you be signaling. So all of these are the things that are very important. Mentorship is very important in the whole USMLE journey. I do not recommend doing it alone. Then avoid red flags. And by what I mean by red flags is that the things that are not in your control, like your year of graduation, uh, or not a very great score in step two, I would not consider them red flags. What I consider red flag is an attempt in your exams. I mean, you should try your best to not have an attempt in your exam. Delay your exam if you're not feeling ready, if you're not feeling confident, instead of, uh, failing an exam, because that's not something that you want to do, because a lot of the programs will not review application if you have an attempt. However, that does not mean that if you have an attempt in your steps exam, or even in your medical school exams, then your life is over, or your USMLE career is over. It's not. A lot of the people do match with attempts because there are always ways to compensate for a lower score. There are always ways for compensating red flags. The other thing that I would say is a red flag is what you write in your personal statement. So apart from your ERAS application, your personal statement is something which tells the person, which tells the reader who you are outside of medicine. And I have read personal statements from people who, when I read that personal statement, I can actually see that this person is very arrogant. This person is not a people's person. This person would not be easy to work with. So if I can see that thing in a person's personal statement, the people who are interviewing and reviewing your application, the program directors, the faculties, they're very, very, very experienced. They have been doing it for years, and they read your personal statement and they can judge the kind of person that you are. So it's very important that you write a neutral and positive personal statement. You highlight your strengths in a way that doesn't make you seem arrogant, just good enough and just confident enough. So, writing a very stingy or very arrogant personal statement is a red flag for me. If I was a program director, even if you had great credentials, but your personal statement was making me feel like you're the kind of person who's not easy to work with, there's a very good chance that I would not want you in my program. So that is something that you want to avoid in your personal statement. Acing your residency interviews. So congratulations, you have made it to an interview in your match application. So what happens when you've got an interview? The first and foremost important thing to remember, and these are actually the words of my mentor in the USMLE journey. When I got my first interview, it was from a very IMG unfriendly program. And I told my mentor that they might have just given me this interview because I sent them a gold signal. So he said to me that there is no such thing as a courtesy interview. And that's very true. In the US, there are no courtesy interviews. If somebody is sending you an interview, if a program is sending you an interview, it means that they like your application. It means that they want you in their program. So even if you're insecure about your application, if you think that there's something missing in your application, like your grades are not what you wanted them to be, or you do not have enough observerships, or you do not have the strongest recommendation letters, but you get an interview, that's where that fear should end. Because if you have an interview from a program, it means that they're okay with your credentials. Now they just want to see who you are as a person. They already like your application, and if they like you as a person, they're very likely to rank you as well. So there are no courtesy interviews. If you've gotten an interview, it's a success in itself because this particular program likes your application. So understand the format. When you're preparing for the interviews, it's very important to understand that what kind of interview does the program takes. And that is something which cannot be generalized, because every program has their own format of taking an interview. Some would be very stingy, some would be very lenient, some would have behavioral components, would give you scenarios and ask you, psychoanalyze you, that what kind of person you're going to be. Just give me 1 second. My laptop is going to die any minute, so just give me 1 second. Okay. So, okay. So we talked that there are no such thing as courtesy interviews. Then we came that you should know the format of the interview by the program. So the best way to understand the format of an interview is to reach out to the residents or the fellows who are there. So particularly the residents. And once you get an interview, even if the people who weren't replying to you before, they're very likely to reply to you. I mean, there would be only very few people who do not have that capacity or who do not want to help you even after you've gotten an interview. But most of the time, once you tell them that you've gotten an interview from their program, it's very likely that they would spend a few minutes telling you what the format is like. And if you can get them to do a mock interview with you, that would be great, because then that way they can actually ask you, they will actually ask you questions which are related to their program. So that's what I did. Interview preparation, it starts way before your match season. So how do you prepare for your interviews? As I said, that the best way to do it is with the residents from that program. That's what I did. It did not happen with all of the interviews that I had, but a few interviews I was able to reach out to the residents, and they were kind enough to do a mock interview with me. And that was really helpful, because that way they can actually tell you that what the program director or whoever your interviewer is like. What kind of person are they? What kind of questions are they likely to ask? So that's something that's really, really helpful in the interview as well. The other thing I would say is that your interview preparation does not begin once you've gotten an interview, because once you have an interview, you'll get 1 month or 2 months time to prepare, and that's, in my opinion, that is not an adequate time. The reason being, in those 1 or 2 months, you can definitely learn about the program. You can definitely do mock interviews, but your natural tendency to have a conversation, that is something which takes years to develop. So we talked about this yesterday as well. And I would say that when you're in medical school, that is the time when you should start working on your communication skills. Once you start working on your communication skills while you're still in medical school, it's by the time you reach your residency stage or your match stage, you're actually so fluent and confident and comfortable in speaking that you're capable of having a normal conversation with people. And that is what the people in the interviews actually want to see. So the other thing I would say is that be human, you're not a robot. This is something that I actually got to learn from an associate program director. I asked him that what is the biggest problem that you have seen foreign medical graduates struggling with in the interviews. They said that a lot of the candidates, they give you perfect answers, and it kind of seems robotic. It kind of seems like they have practiced way too much. While that is a good thing, it's very risky, considering that if they were to ask you a question which you have not prepared, your tone, your speech, your body language, your facial expression, everything's going to change. So once an out of syllabus question comes in your interview, and you have prepared for your interview in a very strict and robotic pattern, it's very likely that when you get when you get a question which you have not prepared for, you're going to struggle with that. And there's nothing worse than that, because then they'd know that all of the perfect answers that you've given before, they were actually crammed answers, and you're not a natural person. So what they want to do is that they want a person who is a natural, because you cannot prepare all of your answers. They want a person who would have no trouble communicating if they were to hire this person as a resident. So that's very important. So your interview preparation for a match, it starts today. It starts from now. It starts when you're in medical school. So just talk to your peers like you would talk to an interviewer. Even if you're not very fluent in speaking English, it's not our first language, and there's no shame in accepting, even if we're not able to speak the perfect English in the perfect accent with the perfect vocabulary or the perfect, the tone or voice or everything else. So there's no harm in, there's no shame in accepting that because it's not your primary language. But the country that you're aiming for, it's their primary language. So even if you cannot be as good as they are, you should be good enough to be able to communicate with them. And that is something that you can definitely improve if you start early, but that is not something that you would be able to improve in 1 month once you get an interview. So I would say that start preparing for it from now, start talking to your people and start talking to your friends and your peers like you would even if you were in America. So after the interview, said thank you emails. That is something which is very, it's not a given because a lot of the programs do not like to be sent thank you emails. But as a general courtesy, if the program hasn't actually told you that they don't want you to send thank you emails, the good thing to do is that you do send the thank you email and you tell them whatever your good talking points were, why you like the program and why you would rank that program. So that's about the interviews. Now let's come to the visa and finances part of it. So as a visa requiring IMG, you definitely need visa for your observerships or electives, and you definitely need a visa for when you've gotten your residency as well. So when you're going for your observerships or your electives, the visa that you apply for is the B1, B2 visa, which is the business and pleasure visa. And it's actually, it can range anywhere from 2 months to 5 years. Sorry, 2 weeks to 5 years. The minimum they give is 2 weeks, which is very rare. I mean, in considering if you're applying it on the basis of observerships, they are likely to give you at least 3 to 6 months. So, and they can give you multiple entries or they can give you single entry visas. So these are all the things that, they can vary from, it depends really on the visa officer that you're going to have your interview with. And for your residency, you would get J1 and H1 visas, but that is not a concern right now because once you get into residency, your programs would do that and it really takes a lot of burden off you. How to apply for visa? You go to your US travel docs and you apply for a B1, B2 visa. You fill out your DS-160 form and, you book an appointment, you pay your $160 fee, and that's how you get your appointment for your visa. But a very important thing to consider here is to stay updated about the recent changes. Over the last few years, there were not very drastic changes in the visa processes. However, with this new government in the USA, there are a lot of changes in the visa sponsorships and in the visa application and granting visas to people, especially from Pakistan. So it's very important to stay updated about those changes and to familiarize yourself that what do you need to do to make sure that you get a visa. So what are the things that would improve your chances of getting the visa approved? The first thing is that you should have very strong supporting documents. What I mean by that is that you should, the one question that every visa officer asks the person is that, why do you want to go to US? So whatever your reason is, whether it's for observerships, whether it's for electives, whether it's for taking step 3, you make sure that you have the documents to prove that. So when you have an elective or an observership, you should either have a visa letter from wherever you're going to be observing. And if the program or the hospital does not grant you a visa letter, you should at least have the print of the email where they've accepted you for a rotation. So it's better to have a letter from them, but I understand that not everybody would be, they would be interested in granting you a visa letter, but make sure that you have the print of those emails where they've actually, accepted you. And if it's a very vague email, you can request your supervisor that, can you please just send me a proper email that you're letting me do an observership with you for this period of time, and that it's in this department and these are your credentials, just to make your document legitimate. The other thing is that with the recent changes, it's very, very advisable that you apply with your permit for step 3 as well, because if you have to see that the rates of visa getting approved on the basis of observerships compared to the visas getting approved on the basis of step 3, you'd see that the visas on which are applied on the basis of step 3, they are accepted more because you have your exam permit, you have taken a date, you have paid the money, and when you show that letter to them, they know that you've paid $1,000 and for this test, and if they don't give you a visa, that money is going to go to waste. So step 3 is a very good supporting document when you're applying for a B1, B2 visa. However, if you do not have that, you should be good to go with your observership letters as well. Other than that, what are the other supporting documents that you would need? You would definitely need your passport. You would need a proof of funding, that where are you going to get this money from? So whoever is paying for your trip to US, whether it's your family, whether it's your university, whether it's a distant relative or a distant friend, or any loans or whatever that is, you have to make sure that you have the proof for that. And the proof for that is usually a bank statement. And if it's somebody else who's paying for you, it's very good to get an affidavit from them, which says that they are, they're working in this particular place, and this is their means of earning, and this is how they're able to support your trip to US. So that's a very good funding proof. And the last thing is very strong home country ties. It's very advisable that you apply for your B1, B2 visa while you're in your final year, or at least in the start of your house job. The reason is that if you apply for your visa during your medical school, the strongest home country tie is that you're still in medical school. You eventually have to come back because you've studied in this place for 4 years, and the reason why they need you to show your home country ties is because they want to make sure that you won't go to US and just vanish in the air. They want to make sure that you come back. And how they do it is that when you prove that you have strong home country ties, and when you're in a medical school, it's very obvious that you wouldn't let 4 years of your medical school just go by for a US visa. And the other thing is that if you're in your house job, it's very good supporting document that you show them that you're doing your house job, and it's a job that is required for you because you actually signed an affidavit when you got admission in the medical school that you'll do a 1-year house job. So you would tell them that you have signed an affidavit and it's a requirement. So you're not going to vanish. You're eventually going to come back and complete your house job. Even if you're not, this is something which is definitely a good idea, that you apply for visa while you're in your house job, because you're eventually going to come back. And even though you have no intention of staying in the US on a B1, B2 visa, you should have your supporting documents. You should not expect them to just believe your words that you will come back. You should have the proof of why you would come back. So that's very important. And lastly, do not try to impersonate someone you're not. I've seen a lot of people that who are not the most who are not the most friendly people, or who are not the most extrovert people, but they would go to a visa interview and try to be an extrovert even if they were an introvert. So if you try to impersonate someone you're not, the people who are actually sitting there and interviewing you for your visa, they're not kids. They have been doing this for a number of years, and they're very good at analyzing that. Are you the true person that you are, or are you trying to be somebody you're not? So if they feel that you're trying to be someone you're not, there's a very good chance that they're not going to give you a visa. And there's nobody to question that. Why was my visa denied? If your visa is denied, it's up to the visa officer, and you cannot question that. So don't try to impersonate somebody you're not. Just be comfortable with who you are. Just be presentable. Just have a good reason of why you want to go to US and why you would come back, and have a solid plan, a travel itinerary. I understand that the travel itinerary can be subjected to changes, but you should definitely have bullet points of, okay, I would go to first month in this hospital, then I would go to this hospital, then I would go to this hospital, then I would take my step 3, and then I would come back. They don't expect you to give them the details of every day, but they do expect you to know what you're going to do there. So you should have a very good, have clarity about what you want to do when you go to US. How are you going to do observerships? Which places are you going to go to? When are you going to take your step 3? When are you going to come back to your home country? So that's very important that you have legitimate documents and a legitimate story to tell them. Don't make up things that are not true. Do not lie in your visa interview, because they're experts and they're going to catch you if you're lying. So, and your visa would be denied. And these days, it's very hard to get a visa appointment. So once you get a visa appointment, consider yourself lucky and be genuine and be legitimate with it and be sincere with it. So, come down to the cost of match. Okay, I'm going to drink a little bit of water because this is going to be a lot of money. So, let's talk about the total cost of match. So, starting with when you begin your, when you decide that you want to do USMLE, the first thing you do is that you get an ECFMG ID and you get certain documents notarized. And the fee for that is $160. So once you get an ECFMG ID, that is the number that's going to stay with you throughout your course. It's going to stay with you in match. It's going to stay with you in your interview season, in your ranking, rank order list. And, that's the number, that's your identity number for match. So you pay $160 for that. Then for step 1, it's $1,225, considering that it's, I think it's $1,005 for the exam fee. And then there's a $220 for when you're taking the exam in Pakistan. These exam steps fee, they keep on changing a little bit every year. So these are the latest that I have. It could be a little bit less or a little bit more than that. But this is the average that it is. So step 2 fee is $1,250. Your OET is $455, and your ECFMG certification is $925, and your step 3 is $935. So your step 1 and step 2 in OET, once you take these 3 exams, you have to get ECFMG certified. And for that certification, you're going to have to pay $925. That is the money that you pay when you're getting your pathways approved for ECFMG certification. And once you get your ECFMG certification, you're eligible to apply for step 3. And step 3 now costs about $935. So I haven't added the cost of UWorld here. The reason is that it varies from person to person. If you want to take an online UWorld, or now I believe that there is another question bank called IMD. Many people use that too. I personally haven't, so I can't really comment on if you should use it or if you shouldn't use it. I've not seen it myself, so I can't really comment on that. But if you were to include the UWorld for step 1, step 2, and step 3, that would also add a lot of money in here, because depending on your preparation duration, it depends that for how long are you going to take the, subscription for UWorld. So, I mean, if you take it for 6 months, you might want to take it for 12 months. You might want to take it for 3 months. That really depends on what your timeline and what your preparation time is. So depending on that, it can vary somewhere from $400 to even $1,000, depending on for how long you're taking it. Then let's come to the B1, B2 visa application. And that is, the application fee is $160 for that. That's the cost that you have to pay to get the slot for visa appointment. It doesn't mean that you have to pay this when you get your visa. You're going to have to pay this fee whether you get your visa or not. Then let's say that congratulations, you've gotten your visa and you have observerships, and now you're going to go to US. So for that, the first thing is that you have to get your return flight. It's always recommended to get a return flight, even because that helps with the immigration process, because it shows that you're going to go back. Because the visa person and the immigration person, everybody wants to make sure that if you come on a B1, B2 visa, they want to make sure that you go back. So when you have a return flight, it's kind of showing your plans that you're not here to stay. You're just here to do your work, and then you're going to go back. So the return flight for US is about $1,400 to $1,700. It can vary from different airlines. It can vary that if you book a flight earlier, like a few months in advance, you might be able to get cheaper tickets. You might be traveling off season, not on New Year's and not on peak summer vacation or not on peak winter vacations. So you might be able to get cheaper flights. On the other hand, if you pick flights where there is longer layover, so the more the khwari, the lesser the price of the return ticket. So that's something, but on an average, it's going to range somewhere from $1,400 to $1,700. Then expenses in USA, they can range somewhere from $300 to $3,000 to $5,000. And what I mean by those expenses, it includes your rent wherever you're going to stay. It includes your domestic flights if you're going to travel from one state to another state and they're far away, so you're definitely going to need domestic flights for that. It includes your groceries, and if you're staying somewhere which is away from your hospital and you have to commute, whether it's on a bus, on a train, or on an Uber, so that money should be included in this. And if you're staying for a good 4 months, it's on an average, it's $1,000 per month. So that's the average, but this is the area where you can save money. So we're going to be talking about how you can save this money, but this is the area where you'll be able to save money. Then the ERAS token, let's say that you have done your observerships before this. The other thing, another expense which can be added here is that if you're doing an observership which is paid, then definitely you have to add that money in there as well. And the paid observerships can range anywhere from $500 to $5,000. If you're doing it in a clinic and some other places, they can have an observership fee of $500, but if you're doing it in some place which is like one I know of is the Drexel University in Philadelphia. They have an observership programs that costs around $5,000 for a month. Similarly, if you were to do it in Harvard, that is about $1,000 per day. And similarly for Johns Hopkins, I think it's somewhere around $8,000. So that is something which is variable. I did not do observerships which costed that much. I'll share in the next slide that how much did my observerships cost, but I would suggest that the best possible way is to find an observership which is free of cost, and there are observerships which are free of cost. And if anything, I believe that the number of observerships which are free are more than the number of observerships which are charging you. So it's just going to need a lot of research, a lot of good diving into finding out the cheaper options or free options. And but there are tons of observerships program where you would be able to do a free of cost observership, and that's something you should aim for, because once you decide of traveling to the US, you're going to be spending money like water. So what you want to do is that you want to avoid having to spend money wherever possible, and getting free observerships is definitely one of the ways you can prevent spending thousands of dollars. So that's that. And one thing I think that I missed in the US clinical experience part is that a lot of the times I do get this question that the program or the hospital is not offering observership. There is nothing on their website. More than half of the hospitals would not have a particular mention of allowing observerships or allowing electives on their website. What you want to do is that just remember that in the US, 90% of the hospitals would allow you to do an observership as long as any of their faculty is willing to accommodate you. So even if you go to a hospital's website and they have no mention that they allow observerships or don't allow observerships, I would still say that find a person there and ask them if they can let you do an observership with them. And once an attending or a supervisor accepts you for an observership, 90% of the time the hospital has no problem with it. There are only very few hospitals, very few programs which have a very strict no observership policy. but 90% of the hospital would allow you to do an observership, even if without any mention of observership on their websites. So I would say that that is something which a lot of the people don't share, but that's how you should do it. Pick a program, even if there's no mention of an observership on their website, even if you've never heard somebody rotating in that hospital, just try your luck, reach out to people, reach out to preceptors, and request them that they should let you do an observership with them. And once they do, nobody's going to have a problem with that. And the inner tip for this is that if you find out someplace where you've never seen anybody doing an observership, you're more likely to get an observership there. The reason is that since there's no mention of observership on their website and not a lot of people observe there, so not a lot of people would actually go out and want to try to get an observership there. So those preceptors, those supervisors would not be getting tons of emails to let them do an observership with them. So when you do an email and you request them to do an observership, it's very likely that you're the only person who's asking them to for an observership, and they're likely to say yes. So that's something that you should definitely do. Then you've done your observerships, you're done your step 3, and now you're applying for a match. So the first thing in applying for a match is your ERAS token, which is $165, which gives you an AAMC ID. And that is the ID that you're going to be using for the ranking process. And in addition to your ECFMG ID, this is one more ID that is, that's going to be there on your application. Then your transcripts, when you apply for your ERAS application, your program, you've released your step 1, step 2, and step 3 transcripts, and that has a one-time fee of $80 for all the 3 transcripts. Then match fee, it really depends on the number of programs that you're applying to. But if on an average, it's actually that the first 30 programs are actually going to cost you $10 each. And from the 31st program onwards to however many programs you apply, whether it's 100 or 200, it's $30 per program. So I applied to about 130 programs, and I believe that my average was close to a $4,000 for the match fee. So it really depends on the number of programs that you apply to. And that is your match expense. And well, still paying my student loans, me too. So, and that's going to go for a very, very, very long time, but do not panic, because once you get in the system and once you make it to residency in the US, you would be able to see that it's a very lucrative career. And you would be able to pay your loans in no time. Once you get in the system, once you get into the residency, you'll be able to pay your loan, you'll be able to support yourself. So as scary as it sounds at this moment, just look at the bigger picture, that once you do get matched, it's going to be worth it. So managing finances, this is also a question that I get asked a lot, that considering that I come from a family which did not have the most privileged financial conditions. So there were a lot of the ways that I managed my USMLE journey and the finances for all of that. And how I did was that there are loans. The first option is getting loans, because as we've just talked about, the total expenses starting from your, registering for the ECFMG to getting matched, it's a lot of money. On an average, it's going to range somewhere from $15,000 to $20,000. So if I had to break that down into bigger categories, I would say that you need $5,000 for your STEPS exams and OET exams. You're going to need $5,000 for, on an average on your observerships, and then at an average $5,000 for your match process. It can definitely be a little more than that, but this is the gist of it. So and I understand that that is a lot of money, and earning in PKR and paying in the US dollars it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's supposed to be the other way around. And it will be the other way around once you get into residency. But at this point, it's going to be you're earning here and you're paying in the US dollar. So it's definitely much more harder. And it's very difficult to be able to manage all of those finances just by working multiple jobs, especially by working multiple jobs in Pakistan, where you're earning in PKR. So you really have to see that the kind of time and energy that you're spending in earning that money, is it actually the money actually is of that value or not? So for me, I personally think that it was not of that value. I mean, the time that I would have spent, the time that I would have spent on earning money in PKR and spending in the US dollars, I think that that's more than the actual value for that money. So you're definitely gonna need loans from people. So if you're from a financially privileged family, congratulations, good for you. You don't have the money problems. But if you're somebody who has financial constraints, you're definitely gonna need loans because there's no way other except that. And there are a lot of easy loan schemes, and IPNA also gives a lot of loans, but definitely they have a very narrow bandwidth, and the number of people who are actually asking for those loans is very huge. So you could get those loans, you couldn't get those loans. I applied and I didn't get that loan. So but that is one way, and you should definitely try that. Then a lot of the universities have their own loan projects. So make sure that you reach out to everybody in your university who can actually help you in navigating that. How can you get a university loan if you have one? So other than that, the next thing is that if you're from some medical colleges who have a lot of alumni in the US, and you build a good contact with those and build a good connection with those and ask them for loans, it's very likely that they're going to give you loans. And then at the end of the day, it's your contacts, like your family or your friends or your distant relatives. Those are all the people that you should definitely ask for loans for your USMLE journey. So how I managed and how I got my loans was actually through the connections that I made. Again, today's whole topic has been about connections. And I think that if you're actually listening to me right now, you would be able to comprehend that I'm focusing a lot of connection on the connections. And yeah, that is how I got my loans. So as I told you that I started building my connections 3 years in advance to when I actually started preparing for USMLE. And a lot of those people were in the US, they were faculty or they were fellows, and then they became faculty in the process when I was doing my USMLEs. So once you have built that relationship with these people over the course of months or years, and you ask them for money, showing that you actually have your financial constraints. I mean, if you don't share with anybody that you have financial constraints and you're just an easygoing person with them and you're building a relationship with them, and then after a year you tell them that, oh, I have money problems, can you please give me money? It's very unlikely that they're not going to give you money. So what you do is that if you have money problems and you're in touch with somebody who you think is capable of lending you that money, make sure that from the start they know that you have financial constraints, so that you're actually cushioning the blow when you actually ask them for money or you actually ask them for loan. And that's what I did. I built the connections over a course of 3 years, and most of the people I knew, they knew that I was doing the USMLE journey on my own, that I did not have a lot of financial support from my family, and they could actually see it coming that I'm going to ask them for money when it comes to the match. And that's how I got my loan. So, other than that, there are definitely clinical research assistant roles that you can take. However, in order to get a paid research position, it comes with certain strings attached. And what are those strings? Number one, you have to be very skillful and very fluent in research. And number two, you should be able to make a commitment for at least 2 years. So, when you apply for a paid research position, they're definitely going to ask you for signing a contract with them for 2 years. And rightfully so. I mean, it makes total sense that if I train somebody to work in my lab, I'm spending so much energy on them. I would not want to spend so much energy and effort on them and give them so much money and only for them to leave after 6 months. So I would definitely want them to at least stay for 2 years, if not 3 years, and get that work from them in exchange for the energy that I've spent on training them, or the money that I'm giving them for that job. So that is something that I mean, it's very difficult to find research if you're not willing to make a commitment. And I mean, you can definitely find it based on personal connections like I did. But if you're applying through a hospital's platform like Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and Duke University, they offer a lot of research positions, but they're if they're paying you, they're going to actually ask you for a good 2 or 3 years commitment. So if you can do that, then you can definitely. And the good side to it is that if you make that commitment and you land a paid research assistant job, managing your finances for USMLE actually becomes very easier. You might not actually need to buy get loans from anybody at all. So for saving tips, save where you should, not where you can. So there are a lot of things where you can save the money, but you have to see if you should be saving the money. I mean, you can save the money on UWorld, right? But you have to, you can share your UWorld with a friend. That's going to save you money, but you have to see that, is it worth it? Is the $200 or the $300 that you're saving from a shared UWorld or not getting a UWorld, is it worth it? Because if your scores are not where they want to be, then definitely not. Then it's definitely not worth saving those $300 or $400. So in the same way, if you, a lot of the people will tell you that don't eat, just eat the bare minimum, just eat one meal per day. You don't want to do that. The 4 months you're staying in the US, if you eat one meal, all those 4 months, you're going to be malnourished in those 4 months. And the journey of USMLE is as physically tiring as it's mentally tiring. So you don't want to, just like that part that stop spending money on your health or stop spending money on food. So what are the other areas that you can save money? Number one, finding free observerships. That is a lot of money that you can definitely save if you were a little bit smart in your approach, and if you were a little bit more, proactive in finding free observerships. The other thing is definitely the tickets. Then you can definitely share your accommodations with people. I found my accommodations, and a lot of the times you would want to stay in a separate room. But for most of my observerships, I used to stay in the living room of people because that's cheaper. And they don't give you a bed, they don't give you a mattress, they just give you a couch to sleep on, but it's cheaper, and that's okay. I mean, you just have to sleep. You're going to spend most of your time in the hospital anyway. You just come home and sleep. So that's where you can save your money. And if you can find some distant relative, don't be hesitant of asking them if you can stay with them. One thing that I want all of our participants to, keep in mind is that in the US, you will not get anything that you don't ask for. So make sure, even if you think that your asking is not going to make a difference and this is not going to happen, just ask away. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. It's better than not asking, because in the US, you will not get anything that you don't ask for. So ask for discounts anywhere that you can, on accommodations, on commutes, on tickets, on your luggage and everything. And just ask. So you won't believe how things have a way of making themselves work, but you have to definitely ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get anything. So that's something that I would say, that would be my take home message from today's whole series, that ask for everything. Then travel off season, we already talked about that. And then shared accommodation, definitely, but don't compromise on your studies and don't compromise on your health. You can compromise on your comfort, but don't compromise on your health. Then your mindset should be that every dollar that you save, a dollar is towards your resident. So that's one way. And that's all. So before we end this, I just to give you a very personalized, approach towards managing finances, I'm going to share with you a few things or a few ways that I got help in my finances. So when I started out, I had no money for step one exam. I had the $160 that are required for getting the ECFMG ID, but that was it. And I had no money for step one. So my step one fee was paid by somebody. My step one UWorld was paid by somebody else. Then my step two UWorld was paid by somebody else. And my step two exam fee was paid by myself. I mean, that was the money that I was able to arrange from my family. So I paid for my step two fee myself. Then for step three, I got the UWorld from a friend who had just taken his step three, and he had about a month remaining in his UWorld subscription slot. And then somebody else paid for my step three exam. And then coming to the tickets and the experience in the US, that was the money that I was able to arrange from my family. I would say that was the $5,000 that I actually got from my family for, the tickets and the traveling to US and the staying in the US. Out of the 5 observerships that I did, 2 of them had an application fee. The observership at Mayo Clinic had a fee of, I believe it was $350. And the observership at Houston Methodist had and I think it had an application fee of about $450. And while I wanted to do an observership in both of these places, I knew that I was not going to spend that kind of money. That makes it up to a total of almost $900, and that's a lot of money for me. So what I did was that I decided that I'm going to ask people if they can pay for these application fee. And if I don't find anybody, I'm just going to let these observerships go because it's not worth the money. So for my Houston Methodist observership, I actually reached out to the hospital itself, and I told them that I do have financial constraints and I won't be able to pay this $450, and I really want to do an observership. And I just requested them, and I got that money waived off. However, they don't have that policy, but it comes back to that you will not get anything you don't ask for. It was a long shot. It was a very long shot. It was like leaving an arrow in the dark, but it didn't hurt. And it eventually worked. I was not expecting that I would email them that I cannot pay this money. Can you please waive it off? And they would waive it off. I was expecting that they'll tell me that we cannot waive it off. So, but why I did it was that I just took a shot, and I just thought to myself that I don't want to regret that I didn't ask. And I asked and see how it worked. So that is how that $450 got waived off. And then for the observership at Mayo Clinic, yesterday I shared that I worked as a medical assistant for a company. So my employer at the medical the company where I worked as medical assistant, I reached out to him and I told him that I've gotten a great opportunity to do an observership in internal medicine at Mayo Clinic. However, they have a fee of $350 and they're not waiving it off. I first emailed the Mayo Clinic office that can you waive it off, the same way I did it with the Houston Methodist thing, but they did not waive it off. And that's okay. But then I told him that I tried this, but it did not work. So if I can't pay this fee, I cannot do this observership, and I really want to do it. And he offered that, okay, I'll pay for it. How much is it? And I told him that it's $350. I just sent them the link and they paid that $350. This is again an example of the thing that if you ask for things, they happen for you. But if you don't ask out of whatever the reason is, they're not going to happen for you. Then let's come down to the next thing, which is the match process. And it's actually very interesting that when I went to do an observership at University of Texas in February, uh, I stayed as a guest in this person's home, this lady doctor's home, and we built a very good connection over that 1 month. I did not know her before. She's not from Pakistan, and I mean, I did not know her at all, and she did not know me at all. I just stayed with her for that 1 month, and during when I was applying for match, I reached out to her about 2 months before my match, and I told her that I don't have the money to apply for match. It's going to be around $4,000, but I don't have $4,000, and I've tried everything else and I'm not able to arrange that money. So is there any way you can loan me that money? And she gave me $4,000 for my match. So that's how I paid for my match, and I got matched. And all of these monies that everybody has given me for STEPS exam or for UWorld or for whatever purposes, all of this is a loan. And I told every time I asked people for money, I made the same claim that I will return this money when I get matched, because you don't know if you're going to match in the first attempt. So what are you going to do if you don't match in your first attempt and you have so much stress that you're not matched? You're going to apply for match again. You have you have the stress of getting more loans, and at the same time you have the stress of returning the previous loans. It's going to be a lot. So I was very honest and I was very clear with everyone I asked loan for, that I'll return this loan when I get matched. So now that I've matched, I'm going to be spending the next whole year returning these crappy load of loans that I'm under. So that is the purpose of sharing all of this. Is a very, very personal thing for me. And I mean, this is something that I think my family doesn't even know. So that I have so many loans and everything. But the purpose of sharing this with you guys is that just to give you an idea that if you've settled that you want to do this, there are more than one ways to go about it. You're going to talk to 100 people and 90 people will be telling you that they cannot loan you money, but there will be 10 people who would be willing to lend you that money. And again, it just comes down to that if you want to do this process, if you want to get residency, you have to give your 100%. You have to be sincere to your struggles. You have to be loyal to your end goal, and you have to fight for it. So that's what I did, even though I had no way of funding this journey. At the end of the day, everything worked out. So if you're a Muslim and you believe in Allah and you believe in all of that, then you would understand when I say that if you're willing to make a way for you, then your God's willing to make the ways for you as well. But if you've stopped making ways for yourself, if you decided that it's too hard and you cannot do it, then He's not going to help you too. So you have to make your way first and then expect others to help you through that. So that was the purpose of sharing all of my struggles, because I get a lot of questions about this, and I even get a lot of criticism about it, that only a person who has so much financial liberty can do whole of the USMLE process in 1 year. So here was the breakdown of my financial liberty. So that was it, and thank you very much. Do you guys have any questions for me? Okay, so we have our chat box, which has a lot of questions. Okay, let's go, guys. Okay. Oh, we've actually spent a lot of time today. Oh, we're close to 11. So let's just go. Okay, guys. I think a few mics are on. Oh, thank you. That was distracting, yes. how to apply for electives. I am final year medical student. So in order to find electives, unlike observerships, there are a lot of hospitals that would allow electives. As I said with observerships, that even if they've not mentioned anything about getting an observership or doing an observership in their hospital, they're going to let you do an observership if your preceptor accepts you. However, that's not true for electives, because since electives is a hand-on thing, and you're going to be doing physical exams on their patients, you're going to be interacting with their patients, hospitals have very strict policies about electives. So the best way to find electives is that uh, you do your research about what are the places where people are doing electives. If your college is participating in the, the exchange elective programs, then that's even easier. But a lot of our medical schools, they do not participate in that exchange program. So in that case, what you want to do is that you see seniors from your medical school, that if they are doing electives, where are they doing electives? And if you even do not find those people, just start finding out the IMG friendly medical residency programs. The universities are the places which will offer you electives. The program. I'm so sorry, guys. I got disconnected. So, where was I? Yes. So I was, you asked me that how can we do observerships before step one? So that was absolutely correct. I did do my observerships before my step one result, or even before I had actually taken step one. So how can you do that is that when you email people for observerships, you tell them that you're preparing for your step one, and your step one is scheduled for this particular time, I had booked my step one when I applied for observership, but it was actually 3 months before, 2 or 3 months before I actually took my step one. So what I did was that I mentioned in my emails that I'm going to be taking my step one in January, and I want to do an observership with you in February or March or April. So you just mentioned that in your email. And it seems a lot of the time it seems like being honest about your thing is gonna make a hurdle for you. But what I've learned from my journey is that you're a human being who has a life and problems and challenges. And if you're being honest and you're being sincere to sharing your challenges and embracing your challenges and being true to people, these if anything, these challenges and these problems can actually make things easier for you, compared to if you just keep lying to people. So my advice during whole of this process would be that whatever your problems are, whatever your situation is, don't lie about it. So just mention that in the email. So if someone wants to go for a competitive specialty and plans to go for paid postdoc research, can you please tell what would be better, going for elective and doing observership while postdoc research, or skipping electives altogether and going for observership? Considering the fact that we can afford a single trip only, either observership or elective, should we take leap of faith that we can land a paid research position after graduation and go for electives? It really depends on your personal choice, that do you want to do electives or do you want to do observerships? Since you've said that you can only afford one trip, if you can only afford one trip, it would be better to do observerships. The reason being that if you go for observerships after your graduation and after your step 2, you would be able to take step 3 in the same trip. But if you are somebody who doesn't want to take step 3 and apply for match without step 3, then definitely doing electives is better than doing observerships. And as far as the leap of faith and the research position is concerned, you do not necessarily have to be in the US to find a research position, because the paid research positions, they usually get their notices and their advertisement that does come on the official website of the of the hospitals as well. For example, for Mayo Clinic, a lot of the time they do publish the advertisement that they're looking for people for postdoc and for research positions, and you can apply for that. So just for the sake of finding a research position in the US, I would suggest that that's not the fair use of making a trip to the US. It should be whether step 3 or electives or observerships. Can we do observership in OB-GYN? Like, are there any chances? Of course, yes, definitely. I know a lot of people who match and do observerships and everything in obstetrics. In obstetrics and gynecology, you'll find a lot of private practices where you can do observerships, and even some hospitals, they would let you do an observership. So definitely, yes. How to write the email for observership? Should we include our CV? What skills do they want while selecting people for observership or electives? As far as the skills are concerned, they don't want any skills in you other than your ability to talk to people. Because they're not offering you a job, they're just offering you the ability to do an observership or rotation with them. So how to write the emails for observership? Yes, that's a very important question, and I'm going to be making a template for that email very soon, and I'll share it on my LinkedIn as well, so you can definitely take it from there. But just to answer your question, make sure that your email is to the point and it's very, very compact. Don't write an email which has 4 paragraphs telling everything about yourself. The people you're sending these emails to, they're so busy that they don't have the time to read lengthy emails. I've actually seen people that they open their email and they see that, oh my God, this is a 4 pages email, and they just close it. It doesn't matter what you've written inside. It's a very long email. They don't even read it. So make sure that it's compact. Just tell them that you're a medical student or you're a graduate from this place. You're doing USMLE. You've taken your step 1 or 2 or whatever your plans are, and you would like to do an observership preferably in this time. And you would really appreciate it if they allow you to do an observership with them, and definitely attach your CV with it. So just to the point, no need to make it very long. How much does it cost per month? What cost per month? I told you that if you find a free observership, it's gonna be your living expenses, your commute and everything that can go somewhere to $1,000, but it can be less because this is the area where you can save money. Can we apply for electives before taking step 1? Yes and no, because a lot of the places would want you to have taken step 1. So the answer is yes and no. Did you determine yourself that you have to complete all of your steps within 1 year? Yes, absolutely. When I started USMLE, I knew that I'm going to do it in 1 year. So I think you were not here yesterday, and that's yesterday I shared that why did I do it in 1 year. The reason was that when I had graduated, I took after my house job, I took 1 month off. And in that 1 month, I made the whole plan of how I'm going to do the USMLE journey. And I knew that number 1, my year of graduation would be more than 3 years if I hadn't applied for match last year, because I graduated in 2022. So if I hadn't applied last year, my year of graduation would be 3 years. And there are certain programs which have the cutoff of 3 years for a year of graduation. So that was one reason. The other reason was that I'm generally an anxious person, and USMLE process is a very stressful process. And I knew that there was no way I was able to take that stress for multiple years. So I decided that I'm going to take all of this stress in 1 year and get it over with. But having said that, as I said yesterday, and as I keep saying in my LinkedIn posts as well, that just because I did it in 1 year, it does not mean that you have to do it in 1 year. There there are so many ways and so many timelines to do USMLE, and the best timeline is what suits you. So this is in no way means to pressurize you into doing all of this process in just 1 year. How many ever years you want to take different than mine. Your strengths and weaknesses are different than mine. So it's to each their own. So it's really whatever works for you is your timeline. So how to impress the attending during our rotations for getting a recommendation letter. I just talked in very great detail about it. I hope that your question was answered. How to land a postdoc position. Yes. So for a postdoc position, number one thing is that a lot of the good institutions, and even landing a postdoc position, I would suggest one thing, that doing a postdoc position in a reputable institute is the best thing that you can ever do. Like Mayo Clinic or Duke or Columbia or Yale research. And if you get a research position in these areas, the recommendation letter that you're going to get from there, it's going to make a lot of impact. So how do you land those postdoc position? Most of the programs who are actually hiring for a postdoc position, paid postdoc position, they're going to be posting that they're going to be posting that advertisement on their website. So that is one way of applying. The other way is that in Mayo Clinic and in Cleveland Clinic, there are a lot of independent researchers. So the best way to do is that do your research and see who are the people who are active in research. Once you get in touch with the people who have their independent labs, and you email them, it's very likely that you will get, you'll at least get an interview from them, and then the next thing is up to you, that if you have the good skills and the good work ethic, that these kind of research positions are usually unpaid. And that's totally dependent on you, whether you can afford a paid or an unpaid research position or not. I could not afford. I had landed a postdoc position at Duke University in head and neck oncology, but they were not willing to pay for anything. So, I mean, I had to give that up because I couldn't afford for a whole year to live in North Carolina on my own expenses. So, when to ask for LOR from USA doctor, the mic interruption didn't let you complete. Sorry for that. So, I think that the best time to ask for a recommendation letter is that once you have completed your observership. Just when you're doing your observership, just casually slip it in that you're going to be needing a recommendation letter, but don't directly ask them for a recommendation letter while you're still working with them, because then it makes them feel that you're here just for the recommendation letter. But just casually slip it in that, oh, you're going to be needing 4 recommendation letters for your, you know, for your application. And once you've completed your your rotation, and you after your rotation, you definitely send a detailed thank you email to preceptor, telling everything that letter, because they don't remember what you what you did in your time, like which topic was presented. So mention all of those things that email that they're writing a recommendation letter, they really ask them that, can you please write a recommendation letter for me? And one thing is that some has when filling your provision letter, make the part if they require. How approach
Dr. Sheena is having activity. She'll be live in a while. Please do.
I'm so sorry. I
Please
just got
do if it
disconnected. I'm sorry, I just got disconnected. So uh, sorry about that. Um, Maria. Okay, so guys, since my internet connection is doing a little bit of problem, so I'm just going to turn off my video and my colleagues are going to be they're going to be reading the questions, and I'll just give the answers. Okay, so one question that I got asked is whether it really matters that electives are clinic-based or hospital-based. So if you can get electives in a hospital setting, that is definitely better than doing electives in a clinic setting. However, if you're not able to land hospital electives, it doesn't at all mean that you should not do electives at all. So it's better to do them in in your hospital settings. But if you cannot get them in hospital setting, then you can always do them in clinic settings. How much weightage do cross-sectional survey-based research carry? Yesterday we talked about it, and what I shared was that when you're starting your research journey, at that time, observational and cross-sectional studies are the easiest form of studies to do. However, they are not the best kind of studies. So once you grow as a researcher, you should always try to do better. You should always try to do meta-analysis or original studies. However, it does not at all mean that if you're getting an opportunity to do a cross-sectional study, you should not do it. That's not true. The first research that I did was a cross-sectional and observational study. So they do carry a lot of weightage, but you should always grow as a researcher. So you can start from cross-sectional studies, but make sure that you do more advanced forms. Okay, so the next question here was, Maria, I think that you have a connectivity problem as well. So I think let's just let the Nibras Research Academy, that server to ask the questions.
The question is, do volunteer experiences in Pakistan hold value in your CV? Are they only count if they are based in US? If someone is low on time, is it worth spending time on volunteer experiences, or is it not that high on hierarchy of things that will make the difference in your CV?
Okay, so definitely any kind of volunteer experience, whether it's in Pakistan or whether it's in the US, is equally good, because when you're volunteering, the sole purpose of doing a volunteer experience is that you're volunteering out of good spirit. So you should not care whether it's in Pakistan or it's in US. And if anything, I think it's better to do volunteer experience in your own country, because then it shows that you're working for your own people. So that is definitely worth it. There is no hierarchy for volunteer experience. All the volunteer experience that I wrote in my application, they were all from Pakistan. None of them were from US.
The next question is the waiting time for visa interviews is around 300 days right now, and now you can't update your DS 160. So how do I provide them evidence and tell them where I am going for an observership over a year before I go there? Like when I apply, likely have no idea where I will be going for observership.
I understand that, and that definitely this restriction of being able to change your DS-160 up until 72 hours before your appointment, which used to be before, has definitely created problems now. However, the thing that you can do is that at least get one observership a year before when you're applying for your for your visa appointment. And you when you do it with when you do your observerships or request observerships from if you're from Pakistan and you're requesting observerships from faculty in Pakistan, you can definitely explain this problem to them, that even though I want to do an observership after a year with you, I'm asking right now because I have to put this in my visa application form as well. Again, it comes down to that you have to be true about your situation. They're going to accommodate you for that.
Third, case reports aren't considered as important as other forms of research. Is that true?
So we talked about this yesterday in great detail, that based on research projects, there is a hierarchy that that there exists, which is, the original studies, the clinical studies, and then the meta-analysis and the systematic reviews, then, observational studies and just analysis and cross-sectional studies. So in that hierarchy, case reports generally, they do come at the bottom, especially if you're working in Pakistan and doing case reports from Pakistan. The reason is that we do not have the best possible cases and the best possible diagnosis and treatment. So those case reports are not up to the mark. However, if you're in the US and you find some interesting case report during your observerships and your supervisor lets you work on them, then definitely at the end of the day, it's the quality of your paper, not what kind of paper it is. So a crappy meta-analysis would hold less value than a great case report. So it's not the type of research that matters, it's the quality of research.
It's relatively easy to get a reply from the residents. For the first time we can ask them about steps and all, but after that I realized that distance increases slowly, especially if you're currently a medical student. Like if I'm in third year right now and I don't have many topics to talk about with them, how can we turn this around? In your opinion, how can we actually get the connections going stronger after the first conversation?
I think that that's a very good question, and that's somewhat true as well. But you should not take this personally that the distance increases. The reason is that residents in the US are super busy. So if somebody's even replying to you for the first time, it's a good thing on their part. Because at the end of the day, no person owes it to you that they have to reply to you. If somebody's replying to you, it's solely out of the goodness of their heart. So first of all, just be appreciative that you really appreciate that they're replying to you. And the other thing is that, as I said before, that in order to keep that relationship or that connection alive, you have to stay in touch with them over casual things and over formal things. And by casual things, I mean that you wish them, if they're Muslim, you wish them Eid. If there's something else, whatever they are, if they're Hindu or they're celebrating Diwali or Holi or whatever festivals they celebrate, or Christmas or whatever that is, you make sure that you wish them that way they just keep seeing your name. And it's just basically that they should just be seeing your name over and over again, that you haven't vanished after the first time. And the other thing is that if you're a third-year medical student, just see that why did you reach out to them in the first place? It was because of the USMLE, right? So just share your plans with them about the USMLE. Just don't share all of the information in the first chat so that you don't have anything else to talk about afterwards. So what you can do is just share your plans with them, and then if there comes any changes in your plan, you discuss those with them and just ask them, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do about my step one? How do you think I should prepare for this? You know, just seek advice about little things. Don't pour out all of your information and all of your all of your plans in one conversation, because you don't want to have a 2 hours conversation once. You want to have a 2 minutes conversation every few days. That's how you keep that relationship alive. Next question.
There are some observerships like Cleveland Clinic that directly mentions on their websites that they will not give LORs and will take action against observers requesting LORs. Would you say it would hold a value if you have done an observership at Cleveland but didn't get an LOR?
So I agree with it, and I would say yes. The reason is that I recently shared in my previous slides that the purpose of doing observerships is not just an LOR, although it is definitely a requirement, but that's not the only purpose. And the other thing is that I mentioned that number one, you're going to learn a lot from this because Cleveland Clinic's a great place to work. The other thing is that when you mention 10 experiences in your ERAS application, you can always mention that you did an observership at Cleveland Clinic. However, if you have a better opportunity where you're getting all of these experiences and you're getting a recommendation letter, then definitely you should be going to the place where you're getting a recommendation letter.
I'm particularly indebted to you for exhaustive details in your explanations, especially considering the entirely complimentary provision of this service. Your generosity is most welcome.
You're welcome, guys.
Is it mandatory to do observership in only one discipline if someone wants to match in something competitive like Afghani? I think this question has been discussed.
Yeah.
Let me move to the new questions. Yes, does LOR from internationally recognized hospitals of Pakistan matters?
So we discussed this yesterday, and we said that every experience matters. However, it's lower on the hierarchy. The reason being that if you do not get a recommendation letter from US and you get a recommendation letter from your doctors in Pakistan, they definitely value your recommendation letters from the US doctors. So if you can get those, that is definitely better. However, there's no harm in doing electives here if you have the time. So, but it won't compensate for doing electives in the US.
Do we have to contact multiple mentors, or is there only one mentor that we follow? And how do we know that they will be available to guide us throughout our journey, or do we contact mentors through the paid platforms available?
So number one, the paid platforms available, I would say that there are certain good platforms that are available to guide you, but they're very, very expensive. If you have that kind of money and you feel comfortable doing it, then definitely that's something you can do. However, there are a lot of free options available because uh, like right now I'm doing this webinar out of just so that I can share my journey and answer your questions. There will be a lot of people who would be more than happy to mentor you throughout the process. You make sure that you reach out to those people. And how do you find very active on Twitter? So these are certain places where you can find these mentors. And the other thing is that can we have one mentor, more than one mentor? I would say that you should have. You always have one primary mentor. That is the person that you trust the most with your journey, and you know that they're going to give you right advice. But there's no harm in having more than one people, because not everyone is a jack of all trade. There are a lot of the things which one person wouldn't know, and you can always ask another person about them. So yeah, you can have more than one person to mentor you throughout your journey.
Can you give idea of good volunteer experiences? Do joining medical camps as medical workers count?
Yes, absolutely. They do count. Volunteer experience includes free medical camps. When you're in medical school, you'll have a lot of student societies that would be doing volunteer work. Even joining those volunteer societies is something that would be a very good volunteer experience, because that shows that you've been active since your medical school and not just when you're applying for match.
How can we maintain professionalism while keeping in touch with the preceptor? Like if we give him update time to time, won't he get bothered from us?
So there's a difference between bothering your preceptors with unnecessary information, and between keeping them updated about your journey. So I would not say that text your supervisor every week. Text them once a month or twice a month with any update that you actually have. Don't create updates, they don't care if you're getting married, they don't care if your sister's getting married, but they do care if you've taken your steps, if you've gotten a good score, or if you're applying for a match, or if you've landed an observership. So these people are your professional connections, and you want to keep them updated about your professional achievements. So that's how you maintain connections with them. And the other thing is that it really depends from person to person. I had 5 different supervisors, and out of those 5, there was one supervisor who stopped replying after I completed that observership. I kept updating him for a few months, but then I realized that I never got a single reply from him after I left that observership. So that's when I decided to stop. So you have to, judge the other person's response. If they're responding to one text after you've sent them a text over 5 months, even that is good. You should not expect them to reply to every text that you send them. But if you have a feeling that they're not interested, then definitely, I mean, you can stop with them and you can just go to the other preceptors that you have.
How did you stay in touch with the preceptor or those who provided you the observership even when you had a rotation ended with them? Like what kept you both in contact? Good morning text every day or what?
No, if you're sending somebody good morning text, you're actually being creepy. So no good morning texts. As I said before, that these are your professional connections. So you want to keep them professional, and you keep them updated about your journey, if you're taking steps, if you've scored, if you've landed an observership, if you've done an observership, if you learned a new skills. These are the kind of things. And you don't have to text them every week. You don't have to text them every 2 weeks. It can be one text or two texts a month. And that's just how you stay in touch with them.
What kind of volunteer activities should we do? Can you recommend any volunteer opportunities in Pakistan?
I just said that free medical camps is a very good thing that you can do. Other than that, there are your medical schools organizations. They do a lot of volunteer work. So yeah, those are the kind of things that you can do.
Could you give a little more details on how you got observerships in Mayo and Hopkins?
Yes, of course. So I get this question a lot. So both of these institutions, they have a policy of allowing observerships. However, at Johns Hopkins, if you do not have an observer, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to do an observership, which is, I think, $8,000 to $10,000 per month. So that's not what I would do. But what you can do is that the way I got this observership was that I had a friend who was living in Baltimore at that time, and she was doing a postdoc in ophthalmology in Johns Hopkins, and I asked her that can you just go and tell me if there's somebody who's allowing observerships at Johns Hopkins, and she gave me the email of this doctor who was allowing observers at Johns Hopkins, and I emailed that doctor out of nowhere, and he accepted me for this rotation. The rotation at Mayo Clinic was a very, very long chain, actually. As I told you before, that the fee of Mayo Clinic was paid by the CEO of the company that I used to work with. I had also gotten this observership through him. So I had requested him that I want to do this observership. Do you think you can help me with that? And he reached out to somebody who reached out to somebody who reached out to somebody. I know a person who knows a person. It's that kind of thing. And a very long chain, a very long, exhausting chain of people is how I landed observership at Mayo Clinic. But what you can do is that uh, see the people who are doing observerships in the institutions where you want to do an observership, and ask those people for the emails of the doctors that are allowing observers. A lot of the time, when you get that email and you send that email to the doctor, if they're available, and you email them in the ways that I've talked before, that at the appropriate time, in an appropriate manner, then there's a very good chance that they might accept you for that. So that's one way of getting observerships.
if we are working on research projects and want to collaborate, what is the best way to do so? Since everyone is looking for experienced people and how to effectively carry out researches and find relevant topics. And if someone is introvert and feels shy to message someone, how to connect effectively?
So, number one, we talked about this in great detail in yesterday's session. So I really recommend that you go to the recorded video for this, because we actually talked about this, how to find mentors, how to do research, what is the hierarchy, how to find my finances, how to get mentorship. We talked about this in great detail there. So I think you should definitely go and watch that part of yesterday's webinar. That's going to give you a lot of clarity. On the other hand, you said that if you're an introvert and you feel shy texting people, uh, all of us are different. Not everyone is an extrovert, but your personality, just being an introvert or being an extrovert, is not what defines who you are. You do not have to be super, super friendly or, super, super chill to be able to connect with people. However, what I say is that when you need to talk to somebody, even as an introvert, you're not talking to them for, hi, how are you? I want to be friends with you. You're actually asking them for work. And I think that when you actually have a conversation in mind that you want to have with somebody, it's always easier. So getting over that fear of that you feel shy, you have to understand that the USMLE process requires a lot of connections, and even outside of USMLE, everything requires talking to people. So you don't have to be super extrovert or super friendly, but I'm sure that you're a doctor. You must be very good in your communication. You can definitely reach out to people in when it's about a particular topic, when it's about academics. So that's just a start. I mean, just text a person and you'll find that a lot of the people are super professional and won't even make you feel that they don't want to talk to you or that they're difficult to talk to. So a lot of the people are very easy to talk to, even as an introvert. So yeah, that's that.
Can you please repeat the supporting documents required for USC and how to build strong communication skills?
So about communication skills and supporting documents, we said that you need of course, you need your passport, then you need your home country ties, whatever you're doing, like you're doing MBBS or you're doing house job. Then you need a proof of funding, then you need a reason for why you're going, which can be step 3 permit or your observership letter or email of observership. These are mainly the supporting documents. How to build strong communication skills. As I said before, that this is something that starts from your medical school. This is not something which you can learn in a month or a year. It's a process which takes years, and practice is the only thing that's going to make you good in communication. So just practice it with your friends, maybe practice with AI for starters, get ChatGPT to talk to you. And once you feel confident talking to ChatGPT, you can always go and talk to your friends.
How to approach people if you have no or very little alumni network?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How to approach people if you have no or very little alumni network?
So I said that reaching out to your alumni is one way of making connections and reaching out to people. But if you don't have people from your medical school who are in the US, it's not the end of the world. I'm doing this a webinar for all of you, and I reply to everyone irrespective of the fact that which medical college you belong to. A lot of the time, I don't even ask what medical college you're from. So you will find a lot of people who don't care which medical college you belong to. So just reach out to people, uh, even if they're not from your medical school, wherever they are, just reach out to them. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people wouldn't care that you're not from their medical school.
How many observership programs did you actually apply to, and how many did you get to do, just to get an idea how easy or difficult is it to get an application accepted, what to write in the attached CV?
So for me, it's gonna be a little, it's gonna be a little stressful to share with, because I think that I got observership at everywhere where I applied. The only place where I didn't get an observership and I had applied was the Advent Health. That was the only program where I had applied for an observership and had texted hundreds of people, but I never got a response from them. But other than that, I got observerships at all the places that I wanted to go to. And the reason for that is as I shared before, that I did not do cold emailing. I was very specific in my search, and I made sure that I had more than one ways to reach the preceptor other than just getting through the emails.
Can you please share the step 2 resources?
We talked about it yesterday. And if you want a detail of that, you should just see the webinar for yesterday. But as far as the major resources are concerned, it's the UWorld, which is your main Bible for step 2. You can supplement it with the AMBOSS, the Divine Intervention podcast, CMS forms, and then some Anki decks. So it really depends on what your target score is and how many resources do you have to do to get your target score.
Who are traveling to US during immigration at the airport, do we need documentation for all the observership we plan to do? If we plan to obtain a few rotations while in the US and only have documentation for one observership, how will we explain the 4-month stay during the immigration?
Right. I get that. So your immigration, once you get your visa for like 6 months, your immigration usually doesn't have a problem with you staying for 6 months. They do want to know why you're here, and you show them your first observership letter, and you can always tell them truthfully that you have just one observership and you're going to stay here and find out 2 more observerships and then go back. So because once you've already cleared the screening process from the visa office, immigration usually doesn't contain a lot of problems if you have legitimate documentation for your first observership, your wherever you're staying, and your return tickets.
Could you please elaborate how do we find IMG friendly programs or states in the US?
So there are a lot of lists and a lot of platforms. There's the Residency Explorer, the FRIDA. All of these are the places where which will tell you which are the places which are sponsoring visa. So the first thing to do is that you have to see which places are sponsoring visa, and that is a filter that you can put in both of these platforms, and they'll give you a list of programs. And on the other hand, to find out the super IMG friendly program, just see where people are matching. You see it on LinkedIn, you see it on Facebook. Everybody, shares that. Okay, I matched here, I matched there, I matched here, I matched there. Just see where people are matching. So if 2 or 3 people are matching in one program, that is an IMG friendly program. So there are more than one ways to find out what are IMG friendly programs. And other than that, what you can do is that just reach out to the people who have matched and ask them for their program list. Like I applied to 130 programs, and I think that 120 out of them were super IMG friendly. So you have your list. This is how you can do it.
What's the best way to email the program directors for free observerships? What kind of skills should we mention in our emails?
I told you that before, that you do not need any skills except a good communication skills. So reaching out to program directors is the same as reaching out to any other faculty members. Just you send an email, a very concise email telling them why you want to do an observership, that you're interested in USMLE, then you attach your CV, and that's it. Next question.
How to ask someone to be your mentor without offending them or freaking them out by the burden of responsibility?
No. You cannot put anybody under the burden of responsibility, because because the people who have matched or who are capable of doing of providing you mentorship, you cannot guilt trip them into thinking that they should mentor you. Nobody would say yes to do if they don't want to say yes to do. So get it out of your system that you're burdening somebody or you're guilt tripping somebody. You're not. If you ask me that, can you be my mentor? The only way I'll say yes is when I actually want to do it. You cannot guilt trip me into becoming your mentor. Similarly, you cannot guilt trip anybody into becoming your mentor. The only people who would say yes is because they want to say yes. And how do you reach is similarly, over LinkedIn, over Messenger. Just leave them a text or leave them an email that you're doing USMLE and you want a mentor, and you'd be grateful if they can mentor you in the process.
Submitting your ERAS application, do the observerships a step 3 done. After that, keep adding to the application like you did.
No, you cannot change your ERAS application once it's submitted. You can always update the programs with an email, but you cannot make changes in your CV.
What were the other ways to reach out to people for applying for observerships than just emailing them?
I think we've shared this in great detail that you're going to have to reach out to people. You cannot go to US and ask people. But the other way is that once you go to US with one observership, the other way is that if you're in the same city where there are other hospitals, you can definitely visit the other hospital and meet people in person and request them to give you an observership. That is also another way. But of course, that can only be done if you're already in the US.
Question from Abdullah. Apologies, I know you might have discussed this, but a lot of topics we think for meta or systematic review have already been done. Is there a way to find new doable ones, or we can do the meta again on those done topics with a few addition of new studies?
Well, first of all, you can always do a meta-analysis with the addition of new studies. So that is what meta-analysis is, right? So if you can add more studies into that meta-analysis which haven't been done before, then definitely that is one thing that you can do. And I think that Nabil, you're the right person to answer this question, that what should they do if they're running out of topics. I don't believe that you ever run out of topics because there are millions of topics. You just have to find the right one.
Of course, yes, there are more than 25,000 clinical trials that are being published every year. These are just clinical trials, and there are a lot of retrospective studies, cohort studies going on over the world. So you can always find the topic, but just explore the right resources, the right databases, and be on time. I think that's all. That's all we have for today.
Okay, so do we have any questions from YouTube?
No, actually, we have two questions. I pasted it in here, and we have discussed these questions already.
Okay, that's great. So, okay, there is one more question, that how to exactly know if someone is mentor material, because as per you, if the person is just matched, he's not good enough to be a mentor. Yes, absolutely, because I just said that if I hadn't matched, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you how to do things. So just getting matched doesn't make me an expert in navigating this. I have to get a lot of experience over the years for being able to mentor anybody in the USMLE journey. So how do you get them is that you can always reach out to the third-year residents because they've already spent 3 years in the system. You can reach out to the fellows, and you can even reach out to the attendings to be your mentors. And a lot of the time, the person that you're doing an observership is the best mentor that you can have.
So we have
There is another question, that how is
Yes.
year of graduation calculated? What do you mean? I mean, I graduated in 2022 May, and I applied for match in 2024 October. That meant my year of graduation was more than 2 years, which means that my year of graduation is considered to be 3 years. So next question is it mandatory to do observership in only one discipline if someone wants to match at some competitive like OB/GYN, and secondly wants to be internal medicine? How to deal with this? Okay. So whatever specialty you want to go into, you should have recommendation letters from that specialty. So if you want to go into obstetrics, your internal medicine recommendation letters are not the best recommendation letters for an obstetrics application. I mean, internal medicine can work in family medicine, sometimes in peds and neurology, but since obs and internal medicine are two entirely different east and west things, they're not the best for this. So as many number of specialties as you're planning to apply, you should have recommendation letters from each of those. So you have to do observerships in both of them. And as to answer your question, that is it true that you can only attach 3 LORs in the application? That is yes, but you have to know that you can allot 3 or 4 recommendation letter to each program. It doesn't mean that you can apply the similar letters to all of the programs. So you can apply to your you can attach 3 recommendation letters with your obstetrics and with your internal medicine, but you can allot different letters to each of them. Like you can allot your obstetrics recommendation letters with your obstetric programs, and you can allow your internal medicine letters to go to your internal medicine application. So it doesn't mean that you cannot attach more than 3 letters. You cannot attach more than 3 letters for one program. Is CK possible in 4th year with excellent score if I have step 1 done in 3rd year? If you're getting a score that you're aiming for, you can take step 2 whenever you want. But it's better to take it after final year. The reason being that step 2 is mostly medicine, surgery, obs, and pediatrics, and all of these are subjects for final year. So it will be easier for you to prepare for step 2 if you're in your final year or after you've done your final year. But if you're getting your target score, sure. How can we find email address of supervisors we want to do observership with? There are 2 ways. Number 1, find out if people are observing them and ask them for emails. I'm sure a lot of the people share their emails. A lot of the people wouldn't. But the other way is that every hospital has a particular format of email addresses. So, and there are platforms on, you can ask ChatGPT for it. Every hospital has a particular format of email. So once you break that down and make that up, that this is the particular pattern for your for your hospital, you can make it for any faculty that you want. Can we extend our B1, B2 visa in US if you're planning to extend our observership? No, you can't. You have to come back in the 6 months or whatever time they've allowed you, and you have to get it renewed from your home country. I meant a year graduation from grad date to start of residency or deadline of match application. No. It's up till your match application, because once you've matched, nobody cares about your year of graduation. So, could you recommend some supervisors on LinkedIn? I can't do that. Honestly, no, I can't. Can you suggest places in Maryland, Baltimore for observerships? Number 1, Johns Hopkins. Then there is MedStar, which is super IMG friendly. Then there is Sinai Hospital Sinai Hospital of Baltimore. That's a IMG friendly program. Then there is a GBMC, which is a Greater Baltimore Medical Center. These are the 3 programs which are super IMG friendly. So these are the places where you can do observerships. So if we don't have any questions, we should be ending this, I think.
I guess we don't have much questions right now. Okay.
So I think if we don't have any questions, so guys, thank you very much for joining us. It has been an honor to answer your questions. And I really, really, really hope that I was able to give you some benefit. I was able to give you, some insights. So I really hope that it was helpful for you, because you guys have spent 3 hours listening to me. So I really hope that it was worth your time.
As we bring this incredibly insightful session to a close, we want to express our deepest gratitude to Dr. Sheena for generously sharing her wisdom and remarkable journey with us. Ma'am, your practical strategies, honest advice, and inspiring story has given a clear roadmap to turn residency dreams into reality for sure. And you have shown us that with a focused determination and the right approach, extraordinary achievements are possible within just 365 days. Let's all give Dr. Sheena a final round of applause for her time and stay connected with the Nibras Research Academy for empowering content. And keep moving forward. Wishing you all tremendous success. Thank you, Dr. Sheena. Thank you, everyone. Allah Hafiz and take care.
Thank you, guys. Allah Hafiz.